Welcome, and thanks for joining me to talk about Hour of Code today. We're going to take a look at just a few different things that I've found pretty useful when we're doing the Hour of Code. And first things first, though, just a bit about myself. I am the founder and creator of Code. I've put up a slide here. If you want to get in touch with me afterwards, you can tweet at me, or you can email, or actually even schedule time for learning more about Itch online there with that link as well. And I do have the presentation available on the web, so you can actually get to this presentation afterwards. And I'll just put the link to it in the chat. That way you can, if you get too bored listening to me, you can always skip ahead if you pull it up. But we'll go through this, and I hopefully keep you interested enough that you stick with me with it and we have some fun. So first of all, just a quick view of kind of some of the stuff I've done. I've been in coding for about 20 years now, and got a little tired of the corporate rat race, and so decided to get into education. I've been doing coding with kids for about 4 years, helping out in classrooms and getting just more and more into that. My previous work, though, was involved in building things like the Ford Sync device for the Ford Sync that you see in the Ford vehicles. The Coke machine, some of you might have seen the Coke Freestyle machine, and even projects like that Caterpillar Underground Miner has some software that I've written in there. And I actually shipped the first mobile browser with over 500 million devices. So I've got a code in a lot of different places that I've worked on, but I find it way more exciting and fun to work with kids. So that's kind of where I went to after all of that. And most recently, I have a book out for the Everything Kids Scratch coding book. So check that out. If you find it interesting, drop me a line. I'd love to hear if it works for you in the classroom or not. There's a bunch of kind of activities and fun things that you can do there with the kids, and go a lot more deeper into Scratch in your as you learn as well. If you go to the 7 Steps for Success, and again, you have this presentation, so you can jump in and take a look through it. There's a list of resources at the Hour of Code website, and it goes through a set of 7 steps that you can kind of run through. Essentially, you probably find that fairly useful. There's a number of things for how to actually promote, get the printed materials around your room that you might want to do here. So go through that. I'm not going to dive in, or you can look at that on your own time. I found the FAQ fairly useful as well. This is a good place to jump into to look at any questions that you might have. You'll probably find it's answered in this list. So things like if you need computers for each person, and I'll talk about a few of these as I go a little bit further with my own tips and advice that I want to talk about. So, but take a look through that. It's a good set of resources for what to look at. But the first thing you really want to start is picking an activity. So this is the Hour of Code /learn link, which takes you to their Hour of Code activities, where there are literally probably about 600 resources here. And one of the things is on that page, I'll just go through it briefly, but a few of these things you might not be too aware of. You'll find a lot of filters and things you can do. Beginner or comfortable is really key, is one of the things you might get stuck on. Comfortable will give you more advanced, kind of like middle school or kids that are really familiar with technology. And then another kind of interesting filter is whether it's down here where it says activity type, whether it's a self-led tutorial or whether it's a lesson plan. If you want to kind of run it as a class where everyone's kind of following along and working through it, then you want to look at lesson plans that you can do versus self-led, which means the kids are working independently. And then if you have poor internet or no computers or devices, you can filter out here. And so you can see, for instance, dance party still stays up. And then when you click on these, you're like, well, why is Dance Party still able to work with my computers? So I can start this, and if I dive into that activity, there's a Dance Party Unplugged. So you can kind of like dive in and find ones that work for you. Find an unplugged activity if you want unplugged activities. Make sure you have something printed out for being able to work offline if you have network issues on the day of. So that's kind of key. Let's close that down. Okay, what's next? Anything else I want to show you here? Of course, you can always just go straight to our activities. It's a long list. To go to your Codemy, and I don't have no computer devices, but we've got a couple activities listed here for itch, bouncing ball, and I'll give you a quick demo of that later. This is not a pitch for itch, but I wanted to show you as you join kind of what you can do with it as well. So that's how you get to ours. And certificates is kind of an important one. Make sure you've got printers kind of set up so you can have the kids go and type their own name in to print out certificates, or you can pre-print them all for all the kids. I've had pretty decent success with the kids being responsible in most of the schools that I've gone to. So you can either kind of put all their names in here, or you can print one at a time. So basically you put in, let's go, if you put in their name, like John, but there's a different link you go to, but then they can print their certificate out at the end. And we have links at the end of our activities that take you, like once they finish the activity, most of them have a link at the end of the Hour of Code activity that will take you to be able to print it out. The next item here is the promotional resources. So again, I pull out all the stuff from Promoting Computer Science from code.org. There's a ton of stuff here if you want to send out things to parents at home, or if you want to go further later on. There's a lot of depth to this page. If you click through some of these things, you'll find that they go into a lot of detail about, there was a question we had about pathways. There's a lot of information here about how you can do some of that. Be happy to kind of get into depth on a conversation with anyone who wants to connect with me on that calendar link if you want to talk more about how you might bring the pathways into your school initially. I've worked with a few pretty large school districts where we've integrated it into multi-year pathways now. And so after working with like hundreds of teachers and trying to build that out, you learn a few things to watch out for and what to do there. So click around this page if you want to go a lot further, essentially, or if you're looking for things to help support computer science in your school, district, or state. I won't go any further on that. It's not as important for Hour of Code. itchcode.com will take you to our website if you want to try out Itch for a couple of weeks. I'll show you that in a sec. The presentation that we're looking at, and you can use one of our Itch Hour of Code activities if you like. And so I'll just show you that just briefly. So if you go to that link, it'll take you to our main page of activities. You can get to this off of the directory from the Hour of Code as well. So I'm going to show bouncing ball. Just jump through and into the course. So this is using Scratch 3. So the kids get to kind of dive in, and so you don't need Flash for this. And it's one of the questions I had. Someone asked, is Scratch 2 you need Flash, and Scratch 3 you do not. So just wait for this to load up. Then we have a video that pops up immediately that the kids can kind of watch and work through independently, or you can do directions down below here. So this video kind of does a walkthrough, skip a bit, and then while that's playing, they can pause and they can drag blocks of code around or put a sprite on the stage. So if they want to pick someone, and then they can, you know, have them do things and everything. I don't know if many folks have seen Scratch 3 before, but kind of it's a little bit different, but essentially all the same blocks that you love and know if you've seen Scratch. The activity here is pretty self-directed, so you can essentially just point the kids at it and have them go. It will teach them exactly what they need to do, what they need to drag out. They just kind of click through and dive in. And then once they're done, they can click to go through to the next thing to try to do additional kind of challenge ideas. And if they finish all of that, they get to go to the hour of code to get their certificate here. And this takes them to that same similar page to get their certificate, but it's just a student name where they put in like Donna, and then they can print their certificate out. If they click on it, I guess it's changed. So then they can print that. So kids love the certificates, so I kind of keep them going with that. I've got too many tabs open now. So anyone want me to spend any more time showing the actual activity that we have for bouncing ball? The bouncing ball just has them bounce a ball around the screen, and they can do lots of fun things with it. It's pretty creative and artistic kind of an activity because it's pretty open-ended. They don't have to follow, and that's one of the things I like about what we do versus some of the code.org standard activities where the kids are like very linear in what they have to do. In the activities we have, we kind of give them a couple of things to do and then make it very open-ended. So they come up with wildly different stuff, and that makes it fun for sharing at the end of the hour. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But picking a level that matches your kids is important. So you want to go through the activity yourself first. So make sure you do that. But you might find that your kids are maybe ahead or behind the activity that you're doing. I see Vanessa has a question. Is itch an extension of Scratch? And so I'll just address that quickly. We host our own version of Scratch. It is a private Scratch environment, so it's not. It's for school districts and schools that have sort of restrictions on students having any public-facing activity, and then we add in a bunch of teacher resources as well into Scratch to do things like grading for projects, and then a lot of the lessons are focused around sort of classroom activities, like maybe we have lessons for math, lessons for English, and things like that. But it's a separate system altogether. We just use the same Scratch project from MIT, and we extend it to customize it specifically for classrooms and let you customize lesson plans. I'll talk about it some more if we have time at the end, but you can always go to our website to learn more about it. Go through a few more of the tips and tricks that I have. Did I skip a slide? No? Okay. Thought I might have skipped one. So things to kind of pay attention to before you start. What are your technology needs? So on that page where you're picking what activities to do, you can pick whether you have an iPad or a Chromebook or what you're using. So make sure to use that to filter out to what, and if you have different technology that you have in your classroom, then pick the one that you're familiar with, right? You might not be a computer science person, so if you have iPads, maybe that's easier. If you're doing the dance party activities, which I think a lot of folks will do those this year, seeing as they're so heavily promoted, definitely plan for headphones. That's a key requirement, because you're going to have 30 kids all playing different music in the classroom, and it will be quickly out of control if you don't have that. It's same for doing my lessons. The lessons have video and audio, so headphones are kind of key for a lot of what they do. Now, if you have network or video bandwidth issues, which is something I run into at almost every school, there's a few ways to handle this, because pretty much if you have all the kids start an activity all at the same time, you've got 30 kids all trying to stream, gigabytes of data, and most Wi-Fi networks and even wired networks won't support it. You can do a few things to mitigate that. My favorite one, actually, I didn't even put it on here, is to split your class into an A, B, and C groups, and have each group go just staggered by a minute or so, and just kind of like say, A group, go ahead, log in and get started, and then you might wait 30 seconds, and then have the B group go in and get started after that. So that kind of like stages it out so they're not all trying to do it at once. That works pretty well. You can do pair programming, which gets kids 2 up on a computer, so you don't have as many trying to use it as once, and it actually keeps them more focused. I don't know if anyone's used pair programming before. You can do the videos at the front of the room instead and just have them not play the videos, so you only have one computer doing the videos. And make sure you don't have any firewall issues, and try some unplugged activities if you really get stuck. I was talking just before we started the webinar today about getting a guest speaker. So that's really a fun way to get kids inspired beyond the hour of code to really want to take a change in their kind of life direction almost. And I saw that happen a lot with really influential speakers, or speakers that, so if I go into a lot of Title I schools, I'll kind of try to actually match demographics with the school of someone that comes and speaks to the kids, be that a Spanish speaker or an African American to come in. Obviously, I don't look like a lot of the kids in a lot of places I go, so I try to find someone that will match up that they can relate to. Get volunteers, they're free. You can go to the Hour of Code website and request having tech volunteers or speakers. You can have them remote or in person. So I'm a volunteer. So if you're interested in having me remotely, get in touch. I'm happy to help out if it fits in with a gap in my schedule. And picking the activity we already talked about. Any more questions? Make sure you throw them in the chat. I'm going to go through the questions that we got from everyone. So I sent a few of those out just briefly. Adam, welcome. So the first one was, does this program give students directions to follow the course? And I just did the demo a minute ago, and you can see the kind of, you get the videos and all the directions in the Scratch environment for the Hour of Code activities that you'll choose. And just to kind of go back to that for a second, I think it was back a couple here. Yeah, right here. Oops, one forward. So there's a couple of different previous 2.0 activities. There's a 3.0. So 2.0, you'll need Flash. That's the older version of Scratch. And there's other activities for more advanced kids that we have as well, where you can do science, geography, or 7 Wonders of the World, the other 3. These are all free. The key here is, well, one key point is that you don't do any logins when you're using for any of the activities in Hour of Code that are on that catalog. But that also means that kids don't get to save their work. So at the end of what they've done, they won't have that. If you or you care to try to make sure they can save their work, then you'll want to make sure you sign up for a teacher account and just have like a regular subscription to do the Hour of Code. There's no reason you can't use the same activities in our subscription. We have the same things where you can do the same activities, but the students then have accounts that you set up in our system and in most other systems as well, not just ours. That kind of goes across the board to let kids save their work. I had a question about Unplugged come across. Unplugged means computers are not plugged in. So, and I'll answer that one in a second, Jessica. So unplugged means they're doing it without computers, right? So you can do kind of for the simplest example is like program that I think of for unplugged is maybe program the robot. And essentially what it is the teacher acts like a robot and the students have to give directions. And those are like logic directions that essentially are like coding, but there's no computers involved. It's essentially giving directions and program instructions to a teacher on what to do. And it's kind of a fun activity for the class to work on. So that's an unplugged activity that is using computer science and logic directions, but it has no computers at all. And so there's hundreds of those activities as well. If you want to get the kids outside and it's nice weather for the hour of code, you don't need to be on computers. How they do activities without signing in. So you can do this right now. You go to hourofcode.udemy.com, like this link right here. You can click and start one of these activities and just go for it. It will let you click in, start, and everything will be nothing asking for your name or anything like that. And that's the same for all of the Hour of Code activities. It's a requirement that they have to be part of Hour of Code that we don't collect any student data or information at all. But there's a side effect with that, which is they don't get to save what they do, especially for any web activities. Does that answer your question, Jessica?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. We do have at the end of our activities ability to email the project to a teacher, but we find that almost no one uses it. At the end, they're kind of like, oh, I'm done, and kind of sign out and whatever. But we tried to do that at least as a way to have them save it, but it doesn't seem like too many kids end up using that. So next one. So another question for what can we do for K2 coding? Oh, by the way, I did make this a half-hour meeting, and I wasn't sure exactly how long I would go, so I don't feel too bad if anyone needs to take off. I'm probably about 4 or 5 more slides left to go. So if you're free to hang on for a bit longer, I'll keep going until I get through it. And I hope you're enjoying stuff, but give me some feedback or shoot me an email if you have any other questions, if you need to take off. But the next one was coding with K2. So essentially and I've used Scratch all the way down to kindergarten myself several times, but it really does become a lot harder, and you have to really guide the kids through at the front of the room, especially for non-readers. If kids are not able to read, then you're having them find blocks by the color of the blocks, and you want to make it fairly simple. We use pre-built projects. So what that means is the kids start and all the blocks are already all dragged out that they're going to need. And so they don't have to go and find them. They just have to connect the right ones together. So you might make 4 or 5 blocks like that in an activity, and they'll start with that rather than having to find it. So they can still use itch. I would probably, though, for the Hour of Code, I would have them do a activity that's targeted specifically to that grade level, and that's not itch really. I mean, it's like I said, you can use it for that if you have enough time to kind of do some training with the teacher and whatnot to do it. But we're really more focused on grades 3 to 8. How do you deal with low-tech schools? I wasn't sure exactly what this question meant, to be honest. It could mean a few things. It could be that low-tech means the technology is old. And if that's the case, then, just seeing whether the programs that you have work on the computers that you have. And then the other might just mean not enough computers. And we talked about that a bit, about how to pair people up and things like that. What else? I think it was something else I maybe thought. There might be just not capable of running certain things. So you just want to try out, again, on that course catalog from Hour of Code, they do have poor internet as one of the filters. I haven't personally kind of gone through and tested the activities that they show the match up. So it seems like when I looked at it, a lot of the activity still showed up, that even when I turned that on. But that's at least one way to kind of help guide you towards an activity that might work in lower text situations. And if you guys are kind of maybe wondering what I'm talking about, I imagine if we go back a few slides, it's this picking an activity. So when you pick your activity and you come down here, it says poor or no internet. I'm talking about this one. So turning that on, it should give you activities that don't require as much horsepower or technology. And the other one was pre-reader here, the activities that I think would work better for up to, really for grades K through 2. Next, skip back to where we were. Can you record your own voice to make the cat talk on Scratch? Yep, absolutely. So you can do that. So I'm just going to close this. So inside Scratch, there's a sounds box when you're on someone, and you can just and it's scrolled off the screen a little bit here, but I can click here to record. Whoops, click, and then click on record, and it's asking me to use my microphone. I'm recording myself right now. Hello. So now if I play that back, and I don't know if you guys could hear that or not. Sometimes those come through on webinars, sometimes not. But now I can play that sound with blocks of code. So I might have gone through that too quick, but you can always come back and watch my video. Let's do the thing to make it say it. So I'm going to say play sound, and that would be the recording I just made. So now if I connected that to the green block and I hit it, then that would happen. And so you can do that on any event or anything inside Scratch. So back to my presentation. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. I did talk about the difference between Scratch 2 and 3. I'll just mention it again. The main thing is that you can run Scratch 3 on iPads. And the reason for that is because it doesn't use Flash. Flash isn't something that Apple ever supported, and so pretty much all Apple devices don't support Flash, which means that you can't run Scratch 2 on them. And so Scratch 3 can kind of run almost everywhere. And so the one thing they haven't supported yet is the iPhone versus iPad, just because of the size. And yeah, so we have Scratch 2 and 3 in Itch. You just pick in your lesson whether you want to use version 2 or version 3. And the reason for that is Scratch 3 is still a little in beta, so there are a few things that sometimes don't work on it. But to be honest, I haven't seen anything that's a problem with it in the last couple of months now. It seems to be working really well for everything we're doing. We are using it at Bellevue School District here in Washington, and they have 2,000 students that are trying out some of the courses we made there. How much is a subscription? I love it when maybe I get a question that lets me do sales stuff, and I didn't even ask for it. That's kind of funny. But if you go to our main website, it's kind of like just for reference. And I regretted last time I did this because it was in a recording, and then I wanted to change the pricing, and I couldn't. So, but if you go to our pricing page, you can see you can get a teacher account. That's $49 a year. And that comes with a 2-week free trial. So you can, and I don't do any kind of weird stuff where it's hard to get out of the trial. You basically try it. If you sign in, there's a button right there to click to unsubscribe within the 2 weeks. So you can try it out. And then we do a school district account for Itch for up to 1,000 students for 15 teachers. You can get a demo from us for that. And then if you need something different to one of these, just click this and give us info to get in touch with you. So that was, I think, the last question that we had. I don't think I see any others on chat yet. Just some general kind of advice. Don't be intimidated by students that are like asking questions you don't know the answer to. The best way to mitigate this is to only do the activities to do maybe one or two activities that you choose that the kid's able to do. Don't let them pick anything. That way, you know, if you go through it, you know how to do it, so that you can help them and not feel like you don't need to. But if it is more advanced, then other students oftentimes are your best option. I think, what is it? Ask 3 before me is another one. So they have to ask 3 other students in the classroom before they ask you. Keep them engaged by breaking up the time. Show an intro video. There's a ton of code.org videos. So the way I structure my hour of code is I'll do either a 5 or 10 minute intro where maybe I'll talk about, when I go in, I'll talk about sort of the intro that I did here on coding. And then I'll show maybe a video, promo video for Hour of Code, something that I think they'll relate to. Might show something about robotics or just what Hour of Code stuff. They have so many videos, just pick one you like, watch a few of them. They're all pretty good, so you don't even need to spend much time picking one, so you can just pick ones you like. Then have them work on, give them some direction, have them work on the activity for probably about 30 minutes, and then spend the last 15 minutes of class just doing demos. And that demos, when they're doing the activity, walk around through the class and actually kind of like pick people as, hey, I love what you're doing. I want you to be one of my demo people that's coming up at the end of the class, so that you don't have no one coming up at the end to do the demos. And then you have probably 2 or 3 set up that will demo, and you'll find pretty much you'll get the entire class wanting to demo after that. They all want to show each other what they've done, unless you're in a class of 60. But if you're down to like the regular class size, that works pretty well. Testing, make sure you test stuff out. And then plan for what you're going to do next after the hour of code. And this is an opportunity at the very end to tell your students, hey, we've got this computer science class next semester. Make sure if it's middle school, make sure you're enrolling in it, or tell them about what they're going to be doing. You know, maybe do another activity. If it's elementary school, you might do another activity in another month's time, or you might start to like integrate code like from Itch into, you know, once a week doing a science project or a math project or something where you use Itch instead of PowerPoint or a document that you write for them to create. The last one, sign up for an account. This is the point I made before about saving their work. So if you go to Itch, you basically can do the same sort of thing where you can go into, I'll just sign in with a teacher account here into our main teaching academy. And we have courses for each grade level on the left, but you can essentially then just add your students. So you'll add a user, add a student, and just give them a username and their password that they'd log in with into doing an activity. And then you might turn on, for instance, 3rd grade, we have done, and I'm just going to jump into, let's do this one, 10 block. So then the kids would come in, they'd only see this one that you've turned on for them. So they come in and they go into a 10 block activity, and that might be what you do for the hour of code. And this will save all of the students' projects kind of in a workspace area for that class, so they can share each other's work together. And they would start a new project, and they get, yes, Vanessa, you are spot on with that comment right there. So yes, you teach, and I'll show you a couple of the lessons so you can kind of see how we're squeezing it in. So it's a big problem. But then they get the directions here, and they go through, and you can see that we preload. This is one of the ones we preload blocks already, so that if it was younger kids, they don't have to try to find them, and they just have to connect them together. So maybe, what do you want me to get this cat to do, Carolina?
It's fly.
Fly? Okay. I don't think I can make it fly, can I? It's the wrong cat costume. Maybe I've got cat 1 and cat 2. Nope, he's just gonna, it's the wrong cat. I have to put the other cat in.
You need the other cat that likes to fly.
Okay. So just to kind of go back though, the way we blend it into elementary levels. So if you look at like 4th grade, we have courses like virtues, weather, erosion, deposition. And so when you're teaching these Northwest Coast people, so we do Northwest courses here, water and temperature, people on the move, salmon life cycle, environments, sensory. So these courses are all created as a blend across of cross-curricular material. So you get to essentially teach that component or unit, and then they use this as their project tool, and you'll find they get pretty excited out of having to get to do something that's a little more interactive like this. And you're sneaking in some computer science. So maybe if you want, Vanessa, you can always join us and we can go through into more detail looking at any of these if you want. Go back to my presentation. I think we're just about done, folks. Oh, yeah, that's it. I guess, oh yeah, my other slides were just, when you go to my deck, when you look at it online, I have some additional resources at the end, a couple of videos that I like, and a video on pair programming that I threw in, and then a list of all of our courses from Itch. So do you guys have any other questions? I hope you liked this presentation and it kind of helped you out, feeling like you can dive into Hour of Code. Did I achieve my goal?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening if you're on the East Coast. Thanks for coming a little bit later to the meeting, and I'll hopefully hear from you again. I keep running into the same people all over the US in webinars and presentations. It's quite funny how small the world really is. So I'm sure I'll connect with more of you again at some point.